past year was not good. Ronald Reagan once made a speech about time for choosing. Well, think of this as your time for choosing. You have two choices, one of normalcy or one of grief. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak.
Thank you, Ben. Now we have Diane Bremner. Is Diane here? Is Diane on Zoom?
I think she'll be online here. Hold on.
Okay. I'm just looking to see if she was on Zoom.
We have 55 people on Zoom.
Is she on there, Jeremy? Okay. Diane, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Okay, so Diane, if
Great.
you can state your name and address for the board, and
Sure.
then you have your 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Diane Bremner. I live at 5275 Countryside Drive in Harbor Creek. I'm speaking, though, today as a teacher. I have been teaching English at John Plain High School since 1989, and I appreciate this opportunity to address you tonight. This summer, I volunteered at the Erie Zoo. I spent my time in the basement kitchen of the main zoo building preparing the diets of the animals, but I never actually had direct contact with them. In fact, every day when I arrive, a zookeeper takes my temperature, and I'm required to wear rubber gloves while working, handling that food. And the hours that I spend in that air-conditioned room, I also spend wearing a mask. And these practices are absolutely necessary acts of service to ensure the health and safety of the animals who can, like the rest of us, contract COVID. What impresses me is the Erie Zoo's huge commitment to keeping their wards, their most precious commodities, safe as we navigate through the pandemic. And I think that's the posture that General McClain took last year. I mean, mitigation efforts weren't fun. It wasn't a great year, but they were necessary to keep COVID at bay. So when I heard that a group of community members is advocating for a maskless 21-22 school year, honestly, I was shocked. Why would anyone not want to keep our most precious commodity, our children, safe? Why would anyone not want to keep our staff and students healthy so that we can be in school every day? One of the most frustrating components of the last school year for me was the lack of consistent attendance in class meetings. And I taught students in person, I taught some who were working exclusively online, and I also taught those who needed to stay home from time to time due to illness or quarantining, and it was hard. Like simple class activities like just watching a video or using a computer in the lab became real challenges in an asynchronous learning environment in which I saw my students at most twice a week. We managed. But I don't think any of us want to experience that inconsistent, uncertain attendance situation that the pandemic required. So when Dr. Lane emailed to the staff the proposed health and safety plan last week, I was happy to see the goal that is important to me as well. Keeping students and staff healthy and in school every day, a normal school year. And part of that normality for next year probably includes wearing masks, vaccinated or not. Clear and sound professionals support the wearing of masks, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, who strongly recommends in-person learning and that everyone older than 2 wear masks, regardless of vaccination status. The Center for Disease Control also agrees with the AAP, and the Pennsylvania Department of Health urges residents to look to the CDC for guidance. And we also have our own local professional advisors, Dr. Emily Shears and Pandemic Coordinator Kristen Donnelly, who've offered invaluable scientific professional evidence.
Names.
Hey, nobody does that for you guys speaking, so
Oh,
shut up.
I'm sorry, no names. Never mind. I feel like we're living in a yes-no society right now. It's either right or wrong, black or white, left or right, masks, no masks. And the reality is that where science is concerned, it's not always so cut and dry. There are nuances. New discoveries and information require changes in practices. And the district's proposed plan allows for evolving situations by requiring masks and other mitigation strategies when necessary. It's not a yes-no plan. The plan adjusts as COVID conditions in our community change. It's a smart plan. You know, what seems like 100 years ago, but I think it was more like 25, I was pregnant with my first child, and I needed to meet with our superintendent, Dr. Walter, to discuss my maternity leave. We sat down and looked at the school calendar to plan for a time frame that worked for me and the students. She said to me, "We got to do what's best for kids." Dr. Walter was right. Let's continue her legacy, which has become a hallmark of General McLean's philosophy, doing what's best for kids by making compassionate and educated decisions. And what's best for kids right now is keeping them in school every day, masked when necessary. I request that the school board favorably consider adopting a proposed health and safety plan that includes necessary masking. Like Dr. Walter said so many years ago, we got to do what's best for kids. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Diane. The board thanks you. Next up on the agenda is Jim Pease. He's on Zoom too. Can you state your name and address for the record, please? And then you have your 5 minutes, sir.
Yeah, my name's James Pete. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. My name is James Pete. I live at 9007 Main Street, McCain. I am also mainly speaking as a teacher, although I graduated from General McLean. I have a senior this year, and my son graduated last year. And I do have a prepared statement, but I'm just gonna set it down and just kind of, I was listening to Diane, and she said, do what's best for kids. And I've had a lot of conversations today with friends who are also teachers in our community and outside of our community. And that phrase is the phrase that comes up the most, do what's best for kids. I'll tell you that most of the teachers here at General McLean have their own personal views on everything that's going on. And, you know, I do too, but as a teacher over the course of my 22 years, I have always left that out of the equation. And I think that as we go forward, the two prominent things that go into every single year, especially this year with the pandemic, is keeping the kids safe. And, you know, I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I see the data just like everybody else does, and we all cherry pick the data that suits sometimes our needs. My data is keeping the kids safe. And I, not having all the answers, have to lean towards the people in my community, specifically the local, and lots of people have mentioned the local aspect of this, for that information. And knowing that, you know, the information that we're given is the best that we can do. If there's a 0.01% chance that someone in my classroom can get sick from this pandemic, I have to take that into consideration as a teacher. My goal this year, I mean, last year I consider my year a success, but that success was based upon the parameters put around me last year in the half-day model. The mental health, obviously, not only for the students, not only for the parents, but for the teachers, has been like hard. I spent this summer trying to refill my tanks, hoping that the plan this year would incorporate keeping the kids safe and keeping all of us safe as well. Nothing is perfect. Nobody wants to wear masks. But if that gives us a chance to make sure that the kids are safe, and which is the most important thing, but also gives us an opportunity to teach these kids from 8:45 in the morning for me until 3:45 in the afternoon without anything breaking it up so that they have to go home and get instruction from their parents, or have to get instruction from me again a second time in the afternoon or in the evening, or any other kind of crazy way that everybody has been learning. If we can do anything to mitigate that, I'm all for it. I know that opinions and emotions are running high, but all that I can tell you is I will do anything in my power, put down to me, like whatever the board decides today, we'll make it work. But if we can put things in place that ensure that I get a full 180-day schedule with full days for my kids in my classroom, I'm all for that plan. So I thought it was important that you just hear something from the teachers, which is why I'm here today. And I know, like, I mean, I'm not nervous speaking in front of people, but today I'm nervous because I know that normal, I mean, I would have this take any year. But especially this year, I know that this puts me perhaps on the opposite side of what other people think, but I do want to let every parent that's there know, like, I'm going to do whatever I have to. But I do think as a teacher in the classroom, I have your kids when you're not there. And that makes me want to put everything in place that I can to make sure that they're successful and to make sure that they're safe. So I am for any plan that does that, and I thank Dr. Lane for sharing us with that plan and the board for letting us have this voice, because I do just want to make sure that you know, the teachers also have a voice in this community as well. So I do want to let you know I'm speaking for myself.
Thank you, Mr. P.
Please reach out to other teachers if you feel that's necessary, but I'm going to stop there.
Thank you.
And just thank the board for their time, and thank you for voting on this plan today.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, we have Jennifer Kerner. And Jennifer, if you could state your name and address, and then you have your 5 minutes.
My name is Jennifer Kernick. My address is 12290 Angling Road, Edinburgh, PA. We moved to Edinburgh because of the reputation of the school. We had a special needs child, and we'd heard this was an excellent school district, and there was an excellent sense of community. Unfortunately, we have seen a lot recently, the division within our school and community. It's very evident, and it's continuing to grow. And we're at a time where we really need to stick together. There's over 300 parents, as another speaker has already mentioned, in our group that also feel the same way, that masks should be a choice. The current health and safety plan is enough for any of the funding that we are requesting or that we are anticipating. There is no requirement for masks, and that was made very clear by the education secretary during Friday's Senate meeting. Among the criteria for the health and safety plan, though, there is a request for meaningful consultation with all stakeholders to give due consideration to their views. I think most people would agree sending out an email to Schoology is not meaningful consultation to our students, and they are the ones that are most affected by this plan. There haven't been any phone calls, surveys, or mailings asking for their input. How can they be represented when they haven't even been considered or consulted? Executive Order 13563 states that the plan should tailor its regulations to impose the least burden on society. Anyone who's tried to keep a mask on a child knows that is not easy. It's frustrating, it takes time, it causes disruptions during the day, and it gives our teachers another added unnecessary burden. However, the biggest burden of all is the impact on our kids' mental health. It was repeatedly stated, and just by the last speaker as well, that the health and safety plan we're voting on, or you guys are voting on, is to keep our kids safe. I don't agree that this is the best plan to keep our kids safe. I could quote tons of statistics, as I'm sure many of you could. And we already know those. Suicides are up, the kids are increasingly depressed, obese, substance abuse, dropping out of school, not showing up to school. As one student put it, they took away all the joy and left us with nothing but homework. The fun of catching up with your friends or talking to each other at lunch, that's gone. Instead, the kids walk down the hall silently or muffled hellos as they walk by. I won't put my kids in an environment that is like this for a disease that's rarely transmitted by kids. This disease has a 1 in over 6,000 chance of your child contracting it and ultimately dying from it. The odds are far greater that they will die in an auto accident on the way to school. During the time that the US lost 400 kids to COVID, over 7,000 kids died from suicide. The CDC confirms there's been a 23% increase in ER visits from suicidal ideations and attempts. If we're truly trying to keep our kids safe, we have to look at all the statistics, not just certain ones. There are numerous articles, and it's not just from the doctors. We need to also consider what the therapists say, what do the psychiatrists have to say, the school counselors, how they know also. They're seeing things from a different side, different from the parent, different from the school board, and everyone else. They need to be consulted. Even the esteemed Dr. Fauci stated that we hope there are no long-term effects of wearing masks. We can't keep denying that it's all positive of wearing masks. I don't know about you, but hearing that we hope there's no long-term effects, that's not very reassuring, and it's also not very scientific. If we want to keep our kids safe, we need to let parents decide. Last year, there were several government mandates in place with consequences if the protocols weren't followed. I understand there was not a lot the school board or anybody else could do without there being repercussions from the government. This year, the school boards have the opportunity to choose. While meaningful consultation with the stakeholders has to be considered, it's ultimately the school board that decides if this plan is going to move forward. I'm asking the board to vote no to the revised health and safety plan. I would actually ask the board to follow the example of the CDC, the Department of Health, the Department of Education in recommending what they feel is best, but ultimately leaving it up to the people to decide for themselves. I would further ask the board to vote no to any current or future health and safety plan that gives unchecked power to any individuals to change the masking requirements when they see fit. For anyone who didn't have the opportunity to listen to the education hearing from Friday, Education Committee Chair Senator Martin in part asked the Acting Secretary of Health and the Education Secretary, where is the constitutional or statutory authority for the local authorities to require masks? If it does not exist, then how is it enforceable? What kind of precedent does that set? Until there is constitutional or statutory clarity, I do not see how what is being imposed is enforceable without districts opening themselves up for potential litigation. I ask the board today, well, what constitutional or statutory authority are the mask requirements being based on? And is the school willing to open itself up to potential litigation? Thank you for your time, and please let parents choose what is best for their child.
Now, unfortunately, we had a bobble in communication due to a birth of our secretary, board secretary. So we do have an additional speaker under 5 minutes, which is Stacy Childs. Is she here? Hello. Stacy, if you could state your name, address, and then you have your 5 minutes.
I'm not a resident, but I'm Stacy Childs, and I'm the school nurse at McCain Elementary. So thank you for letting me be here and have time to speak. I'm here today to voice my support for the current health and safety plan as it is. When it first came out, I thought, this looks great. You know, we're not just straight across the board saying everybody has to wear masks all the time. I know that is being recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, but I think we have to be reasonable, you know, with everything considered at the school. So when I saw that masking was going to be optional at the low and moderate levels, but then required for substantial and high levels, I thought that was a very reasonable plan. And I just automatically thought everybody's gonna be for this. We are a public school. I feel that our number one thing is to keep our students safe. We have had teachers die. We have had children die. Whether or not they had an underlying health condition, it's kind of irrelevant. When you have a person die in your school district, it's traumatic. And so, wearing masks, yes, it can be difficult, but I can tell you in my nurse's office, I didn't have any kids coming down to me that were having problems wearing masks. I wasn't talking to any teachers that saw kids that were having problems wearing masks in the classroom. Now, I'm at McCain Elementary, we're K through 4. The children, you know, did well in the classroom. When I saw them, they were happy, they were still smiling. It was hard, we didn't have a full day. We didn't have recess, there was a lot that was lacking last year. But I don't think that that was because of masks, I think it was because of everything that was involved with last year. We learned a lot from COVID last year. We learned what works. Masks work. I see all of these kids coming in every year that are sick. I've been here 10 years now. And every year we have influenza going around. We have sore throat colds. We have a stomach virus going around. We have tons of stuff going around my school. And it's every year. Strep throat. And all of those things also keep kids out of school. But we did not have any cases of that this year. I didn't have one case of influenza, not stomach flu, none of the stuff going around like it did before. We know that masks work, and we know that from the data. And so, in my eyes, our biggest priority needs to be Kids being here to learn 5 days a week, all day, every day. We know from everything they've said, it's not good when they're at home, it doesn't work. We need to keep them here. And professionally, as a nurse, and being here in your school, I can say the safest way and the best way that I can see that happen is to put on a mask. I think that's a small price to pay. So that is my professional opinion. That's what I have seen in schools. And I would ask you to support the plan that's currently being proposed. I feel that that is the plan that's safe, that's gonna keep our kids in school so that they can learn. And that's everybody's goal this year, everybody's goal. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stacy, thank you for your comments. Now we're moving into our 3-minute speakers. These are individuals who were not on the agenda. Paul Westcote. Paul, are you here?
Yeah.
You could state your name and address for the board, and then you have your 3 minutes.
My name is Paul Westcote. My address is 203 Granada Drive, Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, 16412. Before you start my time, I have one question.
You cannot ask board questions, I'm sorry. But you can start your.
Wait, what?
We're here for public comment, so we can only listen.
I'm asking about my speech.
Oh.
I want to make sure
Oh, procedurally. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
So the teachers you allowed to drop names, does that mean we're allowed to drop names?
I corrected them as soon as they brought up the
No,
second
no, she
name,
talked
because
for,
the
she
first
talked
name-
for an entire paragraph and still didn't stop.
No, sir, you're not allowed to use names.
Okay.
Nobody's
That's
allowed
fine,
to use names.
that's fine. I just, figured everybody should since certain individuals were allowed.
Okay, go ahead and start your 3 minutes.
All right, I'm gonna try to stay calm. I had a week to calm down for this, and then I come here and hear some of this, so forgive me. I'm just upset. So last week, comments were made. Last week, information was given. Last week, the board told us approximately 50% of our taxpayers are unvaccinated. And apparently that was an issue. I think it was 44% in Edinburgh and 52% in McCain, something like that. And by one of the board members, those people were called stupid or lazy. I happen to be one of those individuals, not that it really matters, but the board just called half of their taxpayers stupid or lazy. I don't see that as very professional. I've been in professional boardrooms a long time. What goes on in here, what went on in here last week is pathetic. It was also mentioned that board members are volunteer. Thank you all. I appreciate your time. I understand it's a lot of time you give up for nothing, right? I appreciate that. You have students, you have children, that's all well and good, but I appreciate the time you do. What I gathered last week were two things. Either one, they did it for the title, or two, they didn't research the duties or possible duties of their position. You should never take a job unless you know what it entails. The state, it was brought up, the state is not imposing a mask mandate, but the board wants to. They're leaving it to the district. The board was upset about the fact that it was being left to their decision because they actually have to take responsibility for the decision now. That's part of your job. You should have thought of that before you took the position. If you didn't want it, don't take it. If you don't want to fulfill your duty, step down. And we had a smallpox comparison last week. That is so ridiculous. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. That's the most emotional, opinion-based blathering I've ever heard in my life. If you're gonna state something, state facts. I don't care what you like or what you don't. I'm sorry. I don't care if you like what I like or don't. We don't need to know. We didn't need to know how emotional and ridiculous a board was gonna be about a smallpox vaccine that has nothing to do with today or last week. This board needs to be fixed. Whether that's, and I'm not speaking to all of you, I just have to. I had names, I'm not allowed to use them. We can probably all figure out by now what it is. This is ridiculous. This board needs fixed, and it needs fixed quick. Our country and this school district are falling apart, and you're allowing it. We also had somebody else last week mention, compare, hold on.
Can I make a motion for extend? I can move to extend.
No, you can't, because we already motioned at the beginning of the meeting to only allow 57.
I have one,
I move to extend the 57 minutes.
Okay.
I can move
Is there a
to, I can
second?
make a motion.
Is there a second? Okay, motion fails.
Tyranny.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Lisa Brinker. And Lisa, if you could state your name and address for the,
My name is Lisa Brinker. I'm at 5430 Route 6N, Edinburgh, PA.
and you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm an 83 alumni. I'm the youngest of 6 alumni of General McLean. My parents, John and Marjorie Brinker, and my siblings and my descendants, we have 20 land ownerships that is in the taxing district of General McLean School District. I was raised to love and support and give back to my community, which I try to live every day. And if we all do this in our community, we will thrive. But if we don't, this community is gonna die. I have to tell you, I'm a business owner, and my parents were, and I've watched businesses come and go in this community, and it breaks my heart. This young boy here made me cry. I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up. He made me cry, because I have kids that went through the school. And they shared some stories too with me that I tried to get them to come, and my one son said, I would get too angry. I would start yelling and screaming at him, because he has seen, I'm not gonna get into that. Anyway, sorry. But it all starts with education. Anything in our life, as we all know, it all starts with education. I'm here to speak not only for my grandchildren, which will hopefully one day come through this district, but for the parents who cannot speak publicly or who do not want the repercussions for their children. The masking and vaccine for our children is a type of bullying and emotional abuse. The psychological scarring is life-changing. And in some cases, drugs, suicides, which I have experienced. And I have a very good friend in the Fairview district. They haven't left their daughter alone for 6 months because they're afraid she's gonna commit suicide. 17-year-old girl, breaks my heart. And I hope I don't have to go to a relative's funeral. In any case, a key factor to the rest of our children's lives is education. Education, education, education. And that's depending on the rest of their life. It doesn't matter. That's just the bottom line. Sorry. The high numbers that we have seen of losing kids in education is astronomical. And last year I witnessed some in this district, I witnessed some in other districts of seeing how education was going. The cyber school in Cambridge Springs, I watched a young girl get online and it was phenomenal. There was kids that came up online and then the kids that were in the students. So they're half online, half in school. It was phenomenal. I didn't see that in General McLean. I don't understand why we don't have it, but again, I haven't been involved enough to find out. I would like to become more involved so we can have a system like that. It's to my understanding that if you homeschool, the money stays in the district, but if you cyber school, the money goes outside the district. This does not make sense to me. You know, we're a community, and again, united we stand, divided we fall. I got off the subject, sorry. This whole thing, though, basically is about politics and fear and social control. Our government has decided that they own our bodies, and the media has pushed their agenda on all Americans. Fear, fear, fear. Isolation, mask, no hugging, no physical connection. All that makes the human body sick, which lowers our immune system. It's a proven fact. We need to stop all this for the sake of our children. We need to promote health in our children. Healthy food, healthy activity, healthy education. Letting them have fun again, letting them get back to the basics. The CDC, the NIH, the health department, other branches of our government, they change their recommendations, and I stress their recommendations on a monthly, weekly, daily basis. All summer, no mask. It's okay. Now all of a sudden, Friday, 6 a.m., you have to have a mask. I guess I don't get it, but again, I'm not a doctor or anything else. It just doesn't make sense to me. Our children is our choice, to mask or not.
Point of order. I would like to see an accounting